Hello. Last week I released a video called The 5 Elements to Understanding Truth About Everything. And in one of my last videos I said I was going to release a 6th element as a follow-up to that piece. So the 6th element to understanding truth is to have zero allegiances to preconceived notions of what the truth is. In other words, don't be dogmatic in your beliefs and so inflexible that you don't use what I say are your 6 senses. Everyone knows we have 5 senses, which are taste, sight, smell, hearing, and touch. And they're all ways to perceive something. But I would say that thought is your 6th sense, or thinking. Because thinking, the framework that you use for thinking, obviously is going to affect your perceptions of everything. Like I said in the first video, if your framework is wrong, then everything you perceive is going to be wrong as well. A look at the global warming issue is actually a great illustrator of what I'm talking about when I say that people should not have allegiances to preconceived notions of the truth. So, for instance, in the past I have remarked about my skepticism whether man-made carbon dioxide is actually responsible for global warming. And when I've said that, then all kinds of people respond saying, oh, how could you be so anti-environmental? Don't you care about Mother Earth? And all this nonsense, because they're not listening to what I'm saying. Because they already have a preconceived notion if I'm saying that there's a global warming scam based upon human man-made production of carbon dioxide, they're already hearing that I am saying that global warming doesn't exist. And that's not a problem we need to address. That absolutely is not what I'm saying if you listen to the words that I'm saying. So I'm saying that global warming may very well exist, but it could be attributable to a whole number of different elements other than carbon dioxide production that is man-made. It could be attributable to increased sunspot activity. It could be attributable just to natural weather cycles. It could be attributable to all other facts in which thousands of scientists have agreed that there's no conclusive evidence that it's caused by carbon dioxide. So I'm not saying it's not a problem, but people hear me say that and they hear what they want to hear instead of listening to the facts. So they hear that I'm saying it's not a problem. But if you look at some of the facts, like the Rothschilds were already selling global warming as a problem. People don't know this. In 1987, look it up. I'll put, again, the links in the video description below. They started at the Fourth World Wilderness Congress in 1987. Edmund de Rothschild said that carbon dioxide was a source of global warming that was going to be a problem in future decades. And his solution to that was to form a World Conservation Bank, which eventually morphed into the Global Environment Facility, in which they were to lend money to poor countries, and the poor countries were to put up as collateral mineral-rich resource lands. So the scam was, well, every time you realize there's bank and money involved, it was to basically steal the resources of other countries by claiming there's a global warming problem. If there was no carbon tax, where the bankers are basically taxing people for any carbon producing activity in order to get more money by saying global warming is caused by carbon dioxide, then it would be much more feasible to me that this is perhaps the reason why global warming is happening, even though there's no scientific evidence that you can link human carbon dioxide activity to global warming. So that's a perfect example of what I'm talking about, when people have this dogmatic belief in something, and because of that, they don't use their 6th sense. They don't think, they're inflexible, and they only hear what they want to hear. So they don't even listen to what other people say that are trying to put other facts out there that maybe could shape or change their opinion. They don't even want to hear it because they're already so committed to this that they're brainwashed themselves into thinking that anything that sounds kind of negative, even when it's not, is not to be investigated, which is a ludicrous way to go through life, which is basically the way to ensure ignorance in your entire life. Now, tying into that concept of not holding any dogmatic beliefs which are entirely inflexible, which should never, 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 never be done, is the concept of also putting too much credence into authority as well. Because, again, I'll give another example. In 2008, again, I'll put the link to the article below, where I wrote that there was very, very clear evidence that the bankers were manipulating the price of gold. Okay, and I wrote this in 2008. And for 6 years, people said, oh, that's ridiculous. I don't believe that at all. How could you say that? Just because they've been taught to believe that financial markets could not be manipulated. Now, this was, of course, before it's proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that these big global bullion banks all were manipulating LIBOR, all were manipulating, in addition to LIBOR, the Forex markets, these trillions of dollars a day markets. And they're manipulating that. Now we know beyond a shadow of doubt they've been manipulating gold and silver prices too in the paper derivative markets. But here's the crazy thing. So I wrote this 2008, almost 6 years ago. And people did not believe me until Bloomberg and Reuters finally reported that gold, it looks like bankers manipulate gold prices just last month. So for 6 years, they refused to believe me because they only will believe things that are told. There's not even a credible source. You get stuff from Reuters and Bloomberg. That's mainstream news that I would say is 99% propaganda. I wouldn't even listen to it. But to them, it's authority. So they won't believe it until an authority figure says it. Another thing you look at, when you look at all the pioneers, whether it's investing, whether it's in architecture like Gaudi and his fantastic works of architecture in Barcelona, Frank Lloyd Wright, you see that they never ever adhered to what were the norms and standards of that day. In other words, they broke away from it. Right? So when you look at people today like Warren Buffett, that still is going out there pushing diversification, right, as the model to make lots of money, right? So he might be wealthy, but when you look at it, it's because of his connection, his special deals that he gets, because he's part of this global banking cabal. I told you that he always denigrates gold, but yet you can look in recent years, he made a fortune off of gold stocks. So he's lying all the time. So anytime you look at people that are pushing these accepted norms, you got to look at what the reasons are before accepting them, because they simply are not true, they're lies, and they do not work. So one way to avoid falling victim to these dogmatic arguments that have no merit in any type of facts is to identify when appeals are made to people's emotions instead of facts. So, for instance, when politicians want to go to war, they will often say, hey, we got to defend the sovereignty of this country and we got to defend democracy and freedom. And they don't go into any facts at all. So that is one way to know right off the bat that they don't have any factual basis for the war that is credible, that they're appealing to this brainwashed sense of flag-waving patriotism that people are going to climb on board and say, yeah, let's go to war, let's go defeat these bad people, because they have no factual basis for their confrontation. Another thing is to also be on the alert for ad hominem attacks, meaning that Fox News is famous for this. Like Bill O'Reilly and all their other commentators will be like, "Oh, that's outrageous! Oh, that is ludicrous! That's ridiculous!" And they don't debate any facts or points. They just call people ridiculous, pinhead, and they just call them names, and they try to discredit people that way. So anytime you hear someone resorting to ad hominem attacks without providing, I'm not saying it's bad, because some claims are outrageous that are lies. So you can say it's outrageous, but that's where a lot of people that have no basis for the argument stop. because they just want people to, they're appealing again to base emotions. Agree with me that that's ridiculous what this person's saying, so you'll never get to the core of the truth. But if someone says it's outrageous, then they back everything up with facts that refute, the opposition that they're saying is outrageous, then that's okay. So those are ways to basically ensure that you don't fall victim to any kind of dogma as well that has no merit or no basis in facts. So I'll leave you with two final thoughts in discussing the 6 elements of discovering truth. One is, what are the most dogmatic areas of beliefs when you think about it? Education and religion, right? So think about what you have been taught about money, banking, and finance in education, whether it's as a business undergrad or MBA. That is false. Because I'm telling you right now, I 100% know there are many, many lies taught in education about finance, about investing, and you're not going to know the truth. So that's your homework. And then number 2, of course, is religion. Is the second most area where people have even more so than education, totally inflexible, dogmatic beliefs. You cannot argue with them about what they learned in the religious teachings. So think about this. Because you know how clever bankers are. You know how much they have manipulated every single market, whether it's real estate, whether it's a stock market, whether it's commodities markets, whether it's interest rates, whether it's Forex. They've been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt to manipulate all these markets. So think about what kind of lies they would teach you through religion. What are they attaching to religion that are complete, absolute lies to control and divide and conquer people? And I'll give you a clue. It has to do with the Rothschilds' involvement in Israel. So that's your second homework. And then number 3 is, think about this. Okay? Answer this question for yourself today. What was the last original thought you had? It's an interesting question to ask any of your friends as well. Now, I'm not talking about, say, at work, you're asked to cut costs if you're in charge of operations, and you decided that you found a way to cut costs that you thought was creative, because again, that's a directive that's being given to you, and then you're driven by the directive to basically fulfill it. So it's not 100% creative. Or if you're talking about some fact that you read today that is astonishing, I think I read there's lots of water deep in the Earth's core. That again, there's nothing creative about that. You're learning, but it's not creative because that is something else someone else discovered. So actually think about, when was the last time that you took the initiative to create something yourself? An original thought was born from this initiative. So if you can't think of something right away, then that tells you that somehow all your thoughts are being directed by authoritative figures and by the institutional education system and by talking heads on TV. So that should give you the impetus to then start to explore whether these dogmatic, inflexible beliefs that we've all had at one point in time, including myself, that they have come from someone else telling us what to believe. Because most of the times when someone else is telling us what to believe, instead of to critically think for ourselves, that belief is a lie. Okay, so thanks a lot for watching again today, and as always, remain intensely curious. So long.